Unknown. Henderson Field. Guadalcanal. 2200 hours. The night air over the Solomon Islands is thick enough to choke on. Sweat runs into rifle stocks. Mosquitoes hum in the darkness. Somewhere beyond the jungle line, thousands of Japanese soldiers prepare to charge. Private Robert Young Deere of the 164th Infantry Regiment checks his M1 Garand one last time. 8 rounds locked into the end-block clip. Safety off. Finger steady. His unit arrived only days earlier, the first U.S. Army troops to join the Marines on Guadalcanal. The Marines still carry bolt-action Springfield rifles, solid weapons, accurate, proven. But tonight, something new is about to change the rhythm of war. Through the suffocating jungle comes a sound that freezes every American in his fighting hole. Banzai! Thousands of voices, a human wave crashing through the trees. And then the night explodes. The American line answers with a sound the Japanese had never fully anticipated. Not the slow crack of bolt-action fire, but a continuous rolling thunder. Boom, 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 boom. 8 shots. Ping. Reload. The M1 Garand had arrived in force. The rifle itself was the product of nearly 2 decades of American engineering. Designed by John C. Garand and officially adopted in 1936, it made the United States the first major power to equip its infantry with a standard semi-automatic rifle. It fired the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, powerful, flat shooting, and devastating at combat ranges. Gas tapped from the barrels cycled the action automatically. No bolt to work, no sight picture broken. Just squeeze the trigger and fire again. A trained soldier could deliver 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute. Across the field, Japanese infantry advanced with Type 38 and Type 99 Arisaka rifles. Strong, reliable, accurate, but bolt action. 5 rounds in an internal magazine. After each shot, lift, pull, push, lock, break your position, reacquire the target. At best, 15 to 20 aimed shots per minute. On a shooting range, that difference was technical. On a battlefield, it was fatal. As the Japanese closed in at Henderson Field, many never fired more than a few rounds before being cut down. American soldiers later recalled the eerie rhythm, the metallic ping of empty clips ejecting over and over again, like some mechanical drumbeat of survival. The Japanese believed spirit and shock assault would overcome American material strength. Their doctrine emphasized bayonet fighting and decisive charges, and their soldiers showed unquestionable courage. But courage cannot outrun mathematics. An American rifle squad armed with an M1 Garand could pour hundreds of rounds per minute into advancing infantry. Fire and maneuver became possible in ways bolt-action units struggled to match. And Henderson Field was only the beginning. Across New Guinea, Cape Gloucester, Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, the same pattern repeated. The Pacific was not fought at parade ground distances. It was jungle, volcanic ash, tangled vines, sudden contact at 50 yards or less. In that environment, the ability to fire rapidly without breaking aim meant everything. At Saipan in July 1944, when thousands of Japanese soldiers launched the largest Banzai charge of the war, American defenders stood behind a wall of semi-automatic fire. The attackers were brave, but bravery could not close the gap under that storm of bullets. On Okinawa in 1945, Japanese commanders abandoned massed charges for fortified defense in depth. Yet even then, when American troops advanced on caves and ridgelines, the M1 allowed them to suppress openings with relentless aimed fire while others maneuvered forward. The rifle had become more than a weapon. It was a force multiplier. The difference was not only mechanical, it was industrial. Between 1936 and 1945, American factories produced approximately 5.4 million M1 Garands. Production peaked at over 1,000 rifles per day at Springfield Armory alone. The United States didn't just design a superior rifle, it built millions of them. Japan produced millions of Arisaka rifles as well, Type 38s and later Type 99s, but they remained bolt action. Attempts to develop or copy semi-automatic designs came too late and in too few numbers to matter. By the time Japanese engineers reverse-engineered a version inspired by the Garand, the war was already ending. In modern war, innovation delayed is advantage surrendered. The ammunition told another story. The .30-06 cartridge used by the Garand was standard across American rifles and machine guns. Logistics were streamlined, production was massive. Factories churned out hundreds of millions of rounds annually. Japanese forces, meanwhile, juggled multiple calibers, 6.5mm for older Type 38 rifles and 7.7mm for Type 99s. Supply mix-ups were not uncommon. On remote islands, shortages became chronic. Firepower is not only about the weapon in your hands, it is about the system behind it. American training doctrine adapted to exploit the M1's strengths. Soldiers drilled to maintain sight picture between shots, to fire rapidly but accurately, to deliver controlled, aimed volume, not panic spraying. And psychologically, the effect was enormous. Japanese soldiers described the sound of American rifle fire as if entire machine gun units were firing from every position. Captured documents warned troops not to lose heart at the overwhelming volume of fire. But the numbers did not lie. In controlled testing, soldiers armed with the M1 consistently doubled the effective rate of fire of bolt-action riflemen. In sustained engagements, they maintained their output longer because they were not constantly working heavy bolts under stress. In combat reports throughout the Pacific, American units expended significantly more ammunition per man, not wastefully, but because fleeting targets could be engaged immediately and repeatedly. The rifle gave the individual infantryman the firepower once reserved for a small support weapon. None of this diminishes the quality of the Arisaka rifle. In fact, post-war testing proved its action to be remarkably strong, among the strongest bolt-action designs of the war. Early models were well-made and innovative, even featuring chrome-lined barrels before many Western powers adopted the practice. But strength alone could not compensate for rate of fire. And rate of fire multiplied across entire divisions shaped the battlefield. By 1945, American planners preparing for a possible invasion of Japan calculated enormous casualty projections. They knew Japanese resistance would be fierce. They knew the terrain would be brutal. But they also knew their infantry would carry semi-automatic rifles in overwhelming numbers. The invasion never came. The atomic bombings ended the war before Operation Downfall could begin. Yet the lesson was already written across the Pacific. From Guadalcanal to Okinawa, the M1 Garand had proven that industrial innovation, mass production, and mechanical efficiency could outweigh even the fiercest human resolve. Back on that October night in 1942 at Henderson Field, as the jungle trembled with gunfire, the truth was forged in darkness. Japanese soldiers advanced with determination, many believing spirit would triumph. American soldiers held their ground with rifles that fired again and again and again. 8 rounds. Ping. Reload. In the brutal arithmetic of modern warfare, the semi-automatic rifle had changed the equation, and the sound of that ejecting clip became one of the defining echoes of American victory in the Pacific.